Hello and welcome everyone to the latest City University of London European Social Survey and NatSen Survey Methods webinar. I'm Tim Hanson, a Senior Research Fellow at ESSA course in London, and I'll be chairing today's session. We're very pleased to welcome Hao-Yi Chen, who will be our speaker today. Hao-Yi works at the United Nations Statistics Division and is the coordinator of the Intersecretariat Working Group on Household Surveys. This group fosters improvements in the scope and quality of social and economic statistics as delivered through regional, national, and international household survey programs. The UN Statistics Division is embarking on a project to revise and update its methodological publications on household surveys. And in this webinar, Hao-Yi will provide an update on these revisions and the task to provide a future-proof UN handbook on household surveys. Hao-Yi will talk for around 30 minutes, and there'll be time for some questions after that. If you do have any questions, please type these in the Q&A area, and we'll go through as many as we can. I'll now hand over to Hao-Yi.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tim.
Can you turn your
And
camera on, Hao-Yi?
oh yeah, I'm working on that. Hello. Hi. Hi everyone. Yes, my name's Howie. A very, very huge honor to be here. I've been following your webinars for a long time. Really honored to be here to talk about our work from the UNSD and also from the Intersecretary Working Group on Household Surveys. Go to the next step. So briefly, this is what I'm going to cover, introducing the revision of the United Nations Handbook on Household Surveys, and talk a little bit about our own work from the Intersecretary Working Group on Household Surveys, and as well as the position paper we've all, as a group that we prepared together to really guide our work in supporting countries moving forward. That was done during the COVID. And then really talk about how we're managing the revision process and what is the content and structure of the revision, and anything that really the support we can have from you. So the revision of the handbook, it was we received the mandate so from the UN Statistical Commission. Just a couple words about the commission. It's really the highest body of governance for global statistics. So at the level at the official statistic at global level. The commission meets every year, and a member of the commission is from national statistical offices, chief statistician from national statistical offices, and also from international regional organizations. Every year, the commission meets and talk about and really agree on a set of standards, the way we should work together, how we collaborate, how we address some emerging challenges. So every March, there's a meeting for 4 days. And in the most recent one in March this year, we received the commission with mandate from the commission on the revision. The mandate is very useful in the sense that it's really the support from the countries. The NSOs, and National Statistical Office, I keep saying NSOs, would like to ask us to really welcome our initiative, this initiative to revise the handbook. The previous one we have, the UN has published a number of handbooks, and a core one. There's one core which covers all aspects of household surveys. It was in 1984, so that was 40 years ago. But then from the period of 1980 to 2008, we have published a number of handbooks on household surveys that cover different aspects. There's something on sampling in 2008, something on questionnaire design, and then there's something for countries in transition. It was also one of my favorites with lots of examples and case studies. But after 2008, there hasn't been anything. So it's really, things have changed so much. And when we started discussing about the revision, we have chatted with many people. And the first thing is, what has changed ever since 1984? There are many things, especially in the survey field. The IT infrastructure has been completely different. So how that, it will definitely have impact on how surveys are being run. So this revision process is guided by the Intersecretary Working Group on Household Surveys. I will just say a few words about that right after this. And our timeline is the handbook to be submitted to the Commission March 2026. Basically, it means a really good draft needs to be ready end of 2025. So about the Intersecretarial Working Group on Household Survey, it was established in 2015 under the aegis of the UN Statistical Commission with three key objectives. One is to improve coordination of household surveys at different levels. We're talking about coordination integration of survey within the country. It also covers coordination of household survey support activities of our members, because we have a lot of international agencies member within the group, and we are working together. We would like to work together better. So that's the coordination part. And then about advanced cross-cutting survey methodology. There have been so many new things ongoing, and we would like to bring all that to the countries so they are aware of it. If they are interested in trying, so we're there to support them. Enhanced communication advocacy. So we have a lot of communication channels and trying to really bring to one key message: household survey is still very important, even though there are a lot of other data sources. Two is we're advocating for great work from our partners and from our members. So we have 11 international agencies and 10 member states. The Secretariat, the UN Stat Division, and also with ECLAC Stat. ECLAC is our regional arm in Latin America and the Caribbean. And the group is currently co-chaired by the World Bank and UN Women. So our group, work through time-bound task forces. We have a couple of task forces ongoing right now. One is on data integration, integration of survey data with other data sources. The other is on respondent-centered design. They are led by also with contribution from members and as well as non-member experts. So if you're interested in supporting and working with us, please reach out to me. So during COVID, we all see there's so much challenges for household survey for many things, but household survey has been hit really hard, probably not for European region, but for a lot of regions. For Africa, for Asia. In Africa, for example, only one country before COVID has done some CADI survey, household phone surveys. But during COVID, everyone did one round or more of a telephone survey. So those are really the huge impact. So our group got together really to see, with all the challenges and moving forward, what are the positions, what are the future points that we would like our countries to get to in the next decade. So this is really the behind the paper that we wrote. I have a link there to the paper. It's Positioning Household Survey for the Next Decade. This paper identified 8 technical priorities. Why am I highlighting here? Also because this is also guiding our revision of the handbook. So we talk about interoperability, integration, inclusive sampling, and frame, which has been very challenging. How do we really take advantage of objective measurement, mixed mode surveys? There's so much data, parrot data from all these data collection. What do we do about it? And metadata dissemination. And how do we take advantage of machine learning and our AI? And then data access, discoverability, and dissemination. We also put together a set of enable environment at both the national and international level to really support our countries. So the revision will be really guided broadly by the priorities under the highlighted by the position paper. Now let me get into the revision process a little bit from 3 aspects. Governance, because this is a very short time frame. When the previous rounds of handbooks of UN household survey handbooks was done, we have basically a huge team working on it. That was many years ago. Now we really don't have a lot of people. So we are really working together closely with a group of experts in our countries on this, which is extremely important. We cannot do this alone. And we'll talk about the timeline, and then the consultations, a little bit also what we have captured from our consultations with countries and experts. So I'm not going to go through very details, but we do have a very nicely set up a governance structure for the revision. It's a big project, and thanks to our steering committee member who have been really providing a lot of guidance on how to run this type of projects. So we have the UNSD as a chair, the secretariat. We are there really to reach out to countries, look for people, resources, how to get everyone together. Co-chairs are the Intersector Working Group co-chairs and from UN Women and World Bank. Then we have our steering committee members, and they are super active ever since we had our first technical meeting in January. We've been meeting every week to really set up the high-level outline and look at the timeline. How do we move to get forward together? What's the responsibility role of the authors? Who's going to review the draft and bring everyone on board? So it's been and they will also be responsible really to oversee the work of the authors. Every steering committee is in charge of certain chapters, and then they will be really working together alongside with the authors. We have the lead authors for each chapter, and then we have co-authors. And for each chapter, I'll show you the chapter later. We're trying to see really bringing national statistical offices on board from different developments, statistical development level offices, and to really get their insight into the revision, into the revised handbook. And we are also putting names down for reviewers. And then we have a key technical editor who is currently on board and bringing all the pieces together at the end. Now I have a list of steering committee members with us, and they are, as I mentioned, they work so tirelessly in the past few months. It's been 3 months. Every week they're meeting and really talk about every step what we do. So it's a good mixture of country, national statistical offices, and academia. And you see, for example, from UK, we have Peter. Then we have Frocket. She's working both at the Maryland and College Park, JPSM, and also at Munich. And Charles Laus from Geopol, and he will be our key technical editor. We have countries from Canada, so we have Canada, China, Jamaica, Mexico, Uganda. Yeah, we do cover different regions, but with authors, we have more countries on board. Timeline, we aim to have our first draft, September 2024 is super tight. Then we are going to have our second technical meeting in Oslo, and the second draft revised submitted to the Statistical Commission in January 2025. It could be a super skeleton or a more annotated skeleton, and then with more spaces for case studies. And then October, we will have our third technical meeting. Then going to report back to the UN Statistical Commission with a good draft. We have done a lot of consultations. Really, the objective is to have understanding what countries need, because our audience for the handbook is national statistical offices, and I see that more in the low income, lower middle income countries, and maybe the upper income countries as well, that needs support from the handbook. Having said that, and then we're also doing consultation really to see what's there, because we do not, unfortunately, have a good grasp of the entire, household survey horizon, what's going on in countries. We have a bit pieces here and there because we talk to countries. For example, we've had a hard time recruiting an author for the chapter on sampling, no, on frame, because constructing sample frame, I see really a dividing world, that some countries have been going so well with integrated frame, while other countries stuck with, I'm not saying the master sample frame is not good, but we really with a technology that has been happening 45, 50 years ago. And as we all know, population census frame is getting worse and worse. So that's a huge challenge for many of our countries, and we don't have a good solution for them. So For that part, we're really collecting national practices and to see what countries are doing with their frames and what would they like to do to really build the foundation for the drafting of that chapter. So, as I said, we don't have a good sense of what's going on in the world for all countries at different levels. So our consultation is really also an opportunity for us to have a better understanding of countries and to build a connection with them. We do maintain a list of household survey focal points from countries. We have about 120-ish. But this will be really for us to reach out to them and later on then we really would like to have country case studies. So this is a build a connection now and then really later on we can reach out to them for their help. We started a consultation with key experts from November to December last year, and then we have our first meeting in China under revision, and we have about 10-ish countries and experts in the field. Then we started our regional consultation with the help of our regional commission. So we did one with ESCAP, the Regional Commission in Asia Pacific, one with Latin America and the Caribbean. And I was in Geneva a few weeks ago and to really listen to our countries from the European region. Africa, we're planning for June 2024. And we will also requested by countries and some of our members is to have consultation with thematic areas. For example, has been a very active group on gender statistics. So we would like to reach out to them and to see what their needs are. What are the things they've learned that are useful? You know, if there's interest to run a gender responsive survey, and how do we do that? What kind of support they can provide to us, and what kind of support they would need from us. Just a few really very high level recommendations or what we gather from countries or from our experts through the consultations. A core handbook is really useful because we were thinking whether we should just do, you know, covering sampling a little bit, update certain pieces, but countries felt that there's need for us to do a core handbook, building on the foundation of 1984. A lot of theories in the 1984 handbook still very valid. The principles there, like probability sample, right? It's still super relevant nowadays. To set a standard. So some of those content will be coming. Will also be covered in the core handbook. If you're familiar with the official statistics business model, there is this GSBPM, Generic Statistical Business Process Model. Let me see whether I get it right. So this, and all the countries are super familiar with this. So they would like us to follow broadly that phases. And the other thing that wasn't in the 1984 is survey. It's a project manager, right? It's a huge project to manage. So how do we really guide country? These are not even, you know, there's no formulas and how to calculate this and that sample size. It's really how do we organize my surveys? And given that 40 years ago survey has been very prominent as a one major source or maybe the only source in the country. Now there's so many other data sources. How surveys fits in that. Very importantly, next step is next one is balancing the principles and with practical advice and guidance. And countries want examples from others. Most of the countries and do not have as much money the budget they would like to run a survey. So what do you do under circumstances when there is not enough fund? How do you make the compromise? So these are the things that our countries wanted to know. How do I draw my sample if my census frame is incomplete and I don't even know how complete it is in some areas? Can you help me with the frame? So these are the things that it's not in the textbook. It's very difficult to find. It's often really happening in the ground, how countries are being very creative and innovative. There are solutions, but we just have to get them. The other one is there has been a lot of great ideas, experimentations in countries. Some would work, some might not work. So there's a request from our countries to set the principles and guide, but also provide the innovative ideas, but make it clear those are still experimental. You cannot just take them and it's not guaranteed these experiments will work. So there will be a dividing line there. We were approached by our countries from the small islands, developing states, the Pacific Islands, the Caribbean islands. They're facing and also they're facing specific challenges, climate change. They don't really care about distance to school because they're tiny, very small in terms of areas, but they do not. They would like to have information on climate change, now that impact on their lives. So very different needs from the rest of the world, and same for our countries under the Western Asia colleagues regional commission. Most of their countries are either under or post-conflict. So carrying out a survey that we used to do, and it's very challenging. As you can see, you will see that we are not going to write a 1,000-page book. It's going to be 200, 300 pages. So we will have to make reference to a lot of existing materials. Lastly, how do we keep the revised handbook easier to access and update? 1984 is a book. There's no other ways for dissemination, a PDF version later on. So we foresee to have a web-based platform with links to software and tools. There will be printed copies offered. They can also be printable for different chapters. So our countries that do not have good access to internet can carry them. We also will be working with Professor Fouquet and on AI chatbot to really see whether we can help disseminate and access information from the handbook, revised handbook, also all the materials behind the handbook. This is the outline of our handbook. So there'll be introduction and making a case. Second one, it's often very challenging for our countries to push back on the requests. And also sometimes make a case with the Ministry of Finance for budget. Survey measurement, that was the one I was talking about. How do we manage a project? And then you see the usual, almost a flow of GSBPM. And then we also have an annex that focusing on thematic area. They will be small pieces. I'll talk a bit later. Could be gender, education, and children. Each chapter there were structures. The authors are given guidance on what to cover. The tasks of the survey site, subtask and dependency. How do you bring them together? So there are examples on how the authors could bringing the contents in. Thematics at annex. So we have the first core chapters, but then we would like to bring in requested by our members is, for example, how do we run survey, child-centric survey, or survey of children and youth, or about surveys that need to capture refugees and IDPs. What about gender responsive? How do we make that survey gender responsive? Taking that into consideration in the design or throughout the entire process of also surveys. So they have 4 to 5 pages. It's not going to be a lot, but some of the content will be able to be fed into the core chapters. So they will feed into each other. But it's really not a comprehensive, but all available resource there could be that we can bring them together. So the annex will be led by our members, UN organizations, then subject to peer review, editing and approval by the steering committee. For each chapter, we also put a list of cross-cutting themes, and you can recognize right away probably there because quality is important for every step of the surveys. So we will talk about quality framework and management, value for money, data integration, inclusivity. How do we make surveys more inclusive, interoperability, and program management. So these will run through. Every chapter will have to include that. and highlight, the authors are asked to highlight these in their chapters. So later on, this will also be summarized in the introduction chapter. Country case studies. We talked a lot about, we're still trying to get a sense, on do we present individual case studies or a summary of country case studies when there's a specific challenge that countries would like to ask to respond or to fill the surveys. For example, yesterday we had a meeting talking about weights with the authors, and there was discussion on how do we trim weights, how many variables, too many. Is there practical guidance? Is there a difference between countries that have different frames? So how do we give, this is a question I've often asked quite often. And the other one is, I don't know whether Peter's here, there was a lot of people asking how to deal with weights for panel surveys. The panels, the in and out. It's very confusing to deal with the weight. So we have received a lot of questions on this. So imagine this could be something that we address with different ways how it can be dealt with from a country case studies. We will not have all the space to have all countries case studies, but we do have the wiki platform, right? It's going to be online platform, so we will be able to host all them. We have also a drafting framework for the chapters, really to help. One is to help readers, so they have a set structures for each chapter, but also to help the authors in understanding what needs to be there. Of course, making handbook more digital friendly. So we have fixed structures, and then we can get them read into the online platform, and then have a really a common shape, some kind of shape and cohesion to the handbook. So these are I'm not going to read them, but these are really what we have put together. The steering committee put together the framework for the chapter for the drafters, co-authors, authors. We also provide Word document template that follows US standards in terms of editorial guidance, but we have two interns that in the summer that will support literature review with all the co-authors, and they will also work together, support us on managing the references. What we are continuing to do the revision. So what we would really to hear from you, all the audience today here is, if you are really working in the field, what are challenges you've encountered you would like to be addressed in the handbook and that you cannot find in the textbook, for example? What kind of guidance you would like to see? Specific topics, and then you think, a very specific question that would be useful to ask and to give it to us, and what would be helpful for you if a topic, a case studies for a specific topic can be provided. So we have 10 chapters, right? So for 8 of them, we'll have case studies, or 9 of them. What are the questions that should be addressed by those case studies? Because when we go to countries, we need to have very specific questions. How did you exactly do with this challenge? So we need to have that questions, and then that's something that we are collecting. And also what kind of format would be useful, right, for our audience to access the information. And a lot of information will be collecting, the questions throughout our webinars in the past. Then we also get a lot of questions from all the audiences. You help us with A, B, C, D, E. So those are the questions that it will be very useful for us to highlight with the chatbot, because it will be the training data for the chatbot. So how can you contribute? If you have excellent book, great literatures, papers you would like us to include, we are really keeping track of literatures, books, handbooks, whatever you have, you think they're really great. If you're interested in even helping drafting or reviewing the chapters, Let us know if you have great case studies. If you think someone else could have case studies, examples, let us know. This is my email, and I'll also put in my email in the chat. That's a bit easier to remember than this one. With that, I would like to hand over to Tim. Thank you so much for the great opportunity.
Thank you, Haoyi. That was a great presentation, and yeah, pretty major task that you're taking on, but I'm sure it'll be lots of interest. We've got some time for questions now. So I can see there's a few in the chat already. If others have questions, please type them in the Q&A, sorry. And we can ask them as we go through, but I'll cover the ones that are there so far. So there's one question: would you be able to provide a contact address so we could get involved? So I assume that is I think you're typing an answer now with your email address. Yeah, people can contact you directly if they'd like to get involved. Has an annex on surveys on culturally sensitive topics, for example, sexual attitudes, been considered?
Wait, should I respond or?
Yeah, yes, please.
Yeah, no, it's interesting proposal. It will be, is Peter here? Sorry, because Peter is our steering committee member. If Peter's here, feel free really to come.
Sure. Peter Lynn.
Yeah, Peter Lynn.
Yeah, no, I can see he's here. So yeah, I think I can allow him to talk if he has something to add.
Yeah, so Peter, if you have anything to add, we're gathering ideas for these chapters. I think will be an interesting one. If someone's interested in drafting, it's going to be short. And then the editor that is putting everything together. So, what we would need is what you foresee that of just bullet points that could be covered in that annex. And I think that would be really helpful for the steering committee to say that's great to bring that on. My personal opinion, I think it's great.
Sure. Okay, thank you. And another question, are there any plans to include guidance on best practices around data privacy and security?
Yeah, so there is a chapter on data dissemination. It's going to be the author is Olivia Dupré from the World Bank. So this is the chapter we have brainstormed because it changes. This is one of the things that technology changes so fast. Anything we write methodology today and in a few months it's going to expire or get outdated. So we've been discussing on how to keep it more current, future proof. We're talking about with the principles, and definitely we'll be linking to the new things ongoing. I think will be an ongoing discussion on how do we keep those, because this is something that I think will change, evolve so fast.
Sure. Thank you. So
Definitely it will be there. If you're
yeah,
interested in having discussion, let us know.
right, thank you. So is that around kind of data protection, data privacy?
Data
Yeah.
protection, dissemination. I know there has been differential privacy is useful for surveys. So I just came out from the SAE conference and there were a lot of discussion on that. Do we use that for household surveys or not? Household survey data or not? Yes.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Another question, will issues of non-response be covered?
Absolutely. I mean, that's the largest challenge. There has been a lot. So when I was in Geneva a few weeks ago in the UNECE meeting, there has been a lot of experimentation on how to approach respondents so they will respond to you. And so that's when one stream, a lot of, the mixed mode, does it help? The youth tend to be the one that do not respond to how do you approach them, maybe through different media. So I think I see some of the discussion we've been in there. And then there's a larger discussion that we have, and I think it's linked very much to the inclusivity of household surveys and how do we really rethinking about our relationship, our means from my side, the National Statistical Offices with the respondents. So for longest time, it's been me collecting data from you And can we co-own this process? Because I'm also working on citizen-generated data, and there has been a lot of energies from the civil society organizing communities that are very hard to reach through surveys, like LGBTQ, indigenous, but they're so keen to bring their own data to be acknowledged by official statistics. So we're trying to see how do we bring this. On one hand, we don't get people to respond. On the other hand, they're so eager to bring their data in to work with us. So can we really bring the two together and really think about our dynamics, our relationship as, something co-production rather than I'm the state institution, I'm here to collect data, and you gotta do that for the common goods, for the society actually. Do people really care about larger society? So these are the things I see that's going to go into the inclusivity and really how you work with your respondents.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that's the biggest challenge we face for response
Sure.
response.
Agree. Thank you. Another question, do you plan to incorporate the perspective of Latin American countries? There is extensive experience in collecting household surveys, and the language problem is a barrier. If we could have documents in Spanish, it would be very valuable.
Yes. So in the past, we always have UN languages, 6 of them. Spanish is one of them translated. But translation is extremely important, but we will definitely work with our colleagues. So our colleagues from the Latin American Caribbean regional commission is working very closely with us. We'll find a way to get the funding to translate it. But if it keeps evolving, so that's another thing when you think about if anyone has suggestions. If it keeps evolving, right? And how do we keep up with all those translations? So that's another thing. But maybe with ChatGPT, it could be a little bit easier. I don't know. They can do the translation for us.
Sure. Keep the questions coming. I think they're the only ones that have been asked so far. But if anyone has any other questions, please do type them in the Q&A. Maybe I'll just ask one thing while we're waiting for more questions. I think when you had the list of topics at the start of your presentation, you mentioned machine learning and AI as an area that was of interest. To what extent is that going to be covered in the handbook? And are there obviously challenges with that, with the pace that it's moving and uncertainties over future uses?
So in one of the chapters, I think we within among the steering committee members, there is some discussion on the so within the official statistics and the surveys, AI or machine learning have been used a bit more on the, for example, on the editing coding, right, occupation codes. So we're still trying to see what other ways that has come in. I mean, definitely in the data integration field, we work a bit on the integration of survey with geospatial information. So there are ways to work using machine learning models instead of a statistical model. So, and those were, I think they will come in, but I don't know at what level of details. I haven't seen, but the other thing, for example, we have so much parrot data, and this is an area that countries ask a lot. Can we use it? In what way? Um, these are not so for the low income, lower middle income countries. It's really the CAPI data, everything behind it. Can we use it? Maybe there a way for machine learning to kick in. But it was mostly discussed within the context of data editing.
Okay, thank you. And maybe one other kind of general question, which I think you touched on a bit already, was, I mean, certainly on the European Social Survey, one of the challenges we have is the kind of diversity of countries in kind of different cultural contexts, different levels of experience, with kind of different designs and different challenges that they face in delivering surveys. But obviously, that's within Europe. You're kind of expanding this more widely. So I guess the question is sort of how do you handle the challenge of writing this handbook in a way that can be applicable and kind of usable to countries with kind of different resources, different sample frames, different survey designs. How do you go about managing that process?
Yeah, I think we won't be able to be very prescriptive. It's really different options. And many countries, no matter what level they are, I often feel that they are very much interested in seeing what others are doing, even though they're not there yet, right? They can be a mile away, 10 miles away from it. They would like to see, oh, that's something new. I often get a lot of emails say the webinars are great because they get to hear what other countries are doing.
Mm.
So I don't see as being very, say you can do this just because that it will really have to be very much tailored. But we do get a sense that, sometimes what countries might be struggling with, for example, on the managing a mixed mode survey, if they're sequential. And I just don't have any resource at the moment really guiding countries on how do you really manage that? At what point you start to say, okay, I think I'm done with the Kawi. Let me move to the Kadi. And then it gets more tricky when it's time for me to move to CAPI. And for some of the countries, with very complex geographic challenges, mountains and islands. Think about Nepal, I cannot just dispatch anybody. So I have to think about where they are and does it make sense for me to send someone there if the response rate for Cali is not good enough. And then I remember we had Vanuatu with us in January. They have so many islands, and the boat they travel is open boat. So they carry CAPI, but they also paper questionnaire because it also gets wet. So in the dispatching enumerators, interviewers, if countries, so these are the things I think what's there will be very helpful. Just also bringing all the context in. If we're talking about a very small country that's super developed, you can just put people in different places, but they also have like hours requirement, like they cannot work 24 hours. That's what my colleague from Ireland was telling me that, with the contract with the workers, it's almost like you're matching the Uber driver with passengers. How do you manage that with their existing contract with the least cost? So something like that would be very helpful. I know I'm a bit diverted the topic, but I see common challenges and then also having in mind what's the context is different and how do we really support them in those contexts. So for the
Sure.
less developed country, it's a lot of, accessibility is going to be a problem. The most expensive part is the driving, the fuel. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, certainly very challenging. Yeah, good, interesting challenge. Does anyone else have any questions before we close? I don't see any coming through. I don't know how you, is there anything you'd like to say to close?
Yeah, so I mean it's really great honor to be here. I follow a lot, so even though we haven't met real time, but I know a lot of work and really this your region is very advanced. Very much look forward to guidance from this region. If anyone would like to volunteer to write, review, provide interesting case studies, reach out to me.
Great, thank you. So yeah, very clear request there for everyone. So if anyone is interested in contributing or has any questions or ideas, please do get in touch with Hao Yi. And I'm sure she'll be very happy to hear from you. And we can obviously circulate the materials and Hao Yi's contact details so people can follow up. Okay, well we'll close there a little bit early today. So thanks everyone for joining. And yeah, we'll see you again at another one of these methods webinars. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you.